The first round of the 2025-2026 CAF Champions League is over and wrapped up with. Had my eye on a few matches, but now that we've sort of whittled it down, I thought it'd be a good time to do a too early preview of this year's CAF Champions League competition. All of that and more coming up next on the African Five-Side podcast. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the African Football Report on the African Five-Side podcast. I'm Maher Mezahi, I'm your host. As always, this is brought to you by africasaCountry.com. Some really good articles this week on africasaCountry.com. I always say that, but these ones in particular. One article called Biya Forever, talking about President Biya of Cameroon and the very important elections coming up actually in about a little less than 2 weeks' time. And what the state of Cameroon is like at the moment is written by a good journalist named Daniel Akonde. And another one called From Cornell to Conscience, profiling a Gambian intellectual activist, Mamadou Tall, who actually self-deported from Trump's America a few months ago. So that was interesting when he did that. And he's an interesting person. So just him being profiled and him being interviewed. I know I definitely learned a few things from that as well. So I'll put the link for both of those articles in the description below if you're interested. Please go check them out. But we're here to talk about the CAF Champions League. We had the first round that went by. No real upsets. All the major teams made it through. Just one Libyan team, Al Hilal bin Ghazi, lost to Haroya, but that's not really an upset because Haroya is a big team from Guinea as well. So yeah, I think there's no real upsets. So that's a good thing, right? Because we want the biggest teams and the best teams making it as far as possible. And so what I'm going to do in this preview is I took about 8 to 10 teams and I put them into categories. And what we're going to do is for each of the teams, we're going to go through their transfers, who came in, who came out. And then what are some of the main thinking and talking points that we have for each of them. And yeah, you're going to see how I think you're going to like it. And if you have any thoughts, as always, please include them in the comments below. So I started at the top with last year's finalists, and the category that I put them in is this stability or are they regressing? That's what I have. So let's start with Pyramids. Pyramids brought in two, and this is not an exhaustive transfer list, but they brought in 2 main players and they got rid of 2 main players. So they got rid of Ibrahim Adil, who was maybe their best player throughout the CAF Champions League last year, maybe alongside Mayele and Chibi. Ibrahim Adil, remember, was the player that could play in those half spaces and that was very creative. So not only was he a goal threat, but he could especially unlock a defense with his creativity, with his passing. They sold him actually to an Emirati team for $4 million. I thought that was a little bit disappointing. I really wanted him to go to Europe. I know that there were links with Getafe last summer, not the summer that just passed, but the one before that. So I was expecting him to maybe move to Spain or Germany, Holland. Never really worked out. So he makes the big money move. I don't know how that's going to affect the rest of his career. I haven't been impressed with him with the Egyptian national team since the move, but it is what it is. They replaced him with a Brazilian named Everton. I think that's how it's spelled. It's spelled with a W, but I think they pronounce it Everton. And he's a pretty experienced player. He was the captain at his previous club, FC Banik Ostrava in Czechia or Czech Republic. Czechia, I think it's called now. And in that, he played as a winger, and he scored 16 goals in 34 matches. And I do believe they were even playing in some European competitions like the Conference League. So Pyramids, again, thinking outside of the box, recruiting players that perhaps regular African clubs wouldn't really think of recruiting. I credit South African clubs really with opening our minds and recruiting players from South America. But even like Europe, sometimes we think it's off limits. But no, you can find some really good players, particularly in the smaller leagues there. And I think Everton, he hasn't really hit his stride really with Pyramids yet. But slowly but surely, I think he's going to be an important player for them. Also, Yusuf Obama left Pyramids, and they brought in a player I think that's quite similar, Mustafa Zico, in terms of profile. So Pyramids, so far they won the first round of the FIFA Intercontinental Cup. Remember, FIFA, they have this new and expanded Club World Cup, and what they used to call the Club World Cup is now the FIFA Intercontinental Club, except it's not taking place for 10 days, at the end of the calendar year somewhere. Now it's like the Asian champion plays the African champion, then the South American champion plays the North American champion. The winner of those two meet, and then the winner of that match goes and plays the European champion, Paris Saint-Germain. Pyramids beat Al Ahly from Asia, from Saudi Arabia. That's a team with Riyad Mahrez, Frank Kessié, Edouard Mendy. Pyramids went and they beat them convincingly. So even though they started slowly in the Egyptian Premier League, so has Al Ahly, so has many other big clubs. Pyramids, they went and they got that result, which was a very impressive result, in my opinion. And basically what I've seen from them is that they still have the ability to cross the ball incredibly effectively with that Moroccan right back Mohamed Chibi, who has been called up to the Moroccan national team, with Fiston Mayele, who I think he's changed his name to Mahmoud Mayele now. I think he converted to Islam. But I do wonder, can they replace Ibrahim Adel in that creativity in those advanced areas of the pitch? Can they find somebody to pick the lock when the team is sitting back in the low block? I don't know yet. So yeah, it's a very experienced squad. Just 2 players in, 2 players out of significant notice. But I just don't know. Like, can they run it back for one more year, or are they quietly slipping into not just an experienced squad but also an aging squad? When you look at some of the players, particularly in defense, they're getting there. But I still think they're going to be a favorite. I don't think they've regressed that much, and they've kept the coach Krunoslav Juricic. I do think Pyramids, it's healthy stability for them. But what about Mamelodi Sundowns? Stability or regressing? Mamelodi Sundowns, they lost last year's best player, Lucas Ribeiro. And his case really is a case that I think is going to be studied for a long period of time now. I saw an article that was in The Athletic about it, about how this could revolutionize the transfer market, because I guess Mamelodi Sundowns were turning down bids that were supposed to be fair. What is considered fair, I don't know. And he unilaterally managed to rescind his contract. So Lucas Ribeiro's gone, their best player. Tembin Kozi Lorch was sold to Wydad. I think that was not really, you can't consider that a player that's leaving because he wasn't even there last year. Neo Mayema goes to Simba, again, not like a hugely significant player for Sundowns last year. A lot of deadwood. Sundowns are always getting rid of like 15 players in the transfer window, sending them out on loan or whatever. They bring in a very experienced left back, Fouaz Bessedine from Stellenbosch, and Nuno Santos, I think, is supposed to be the replacement for Lucas Ribeiro. Nuno Santos was playing, I believe, at Vitória Guimarães last season. Look, he played 50 plus matches last year in Portugal. Portugal's, a decent league. And I think he's supposed to be, like I was asking about Ibrahim Haddad, I think he's supposed to be the creative player in midfield that can unlock a defense. But yes, they didn't really reinforce that much. I don't know if Nuno Santos is going to be just as good as Ribeiro or better. I doubt it, because Ribeiro was an incredible player for them. Maybe they regress slightly. And I do worry a little bit about Miguel Cardozo and his ability to rally not just the players, but also the staff around him, and the fans. I remember how angry people were last year, after the final. When I went to the Club World Cup, speaking to fans, people were like, this guy, he's overrated, na 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 na. Again, it's coming off the back of, a very, very frustrating loss in the CAF Champions League finals. Sometimes I've been chasing that title for so long. But I also have like other ins at the club, and I do think that many people were very, very frustrated with him. And they haven't started the season very well in the PSL either, drawing too many matches. For them to really step up and not regress, just be even more improved, I think they're going to need very, very big performances from 2 unknown quantities last season in the attacking areas of the pitch. Arthur Salas, who at the club, they really believe in him. That's one thing that I do know. At the club, they think he's a really good player. I think many fans believe he's a good player. Just that I think, because he's tall, people expected him to be a number 9, but he's not really a number 9, so that causes some confusion. Again, when I spend $3 million, I want to make sure that this guy is going to be Lucas Ribeiro level, which he hasn't been obviously yet. So they're going to need him to step up, and they're going to need probably Teshrick Matthews, who I know has already scored 2 goals in the PSL this year. I think he's going to have to step up and live up to his price tag as well. These are the 2 players that I think, if Mamelodi Sundowns are going to go on and take another step, the young players are going to have to develop, particularly these 2. The young player I've been most impressed with is Letlaku at the Letlaku, yeah. He has had a good start to the season, I think. I know Siabanga Mabena's made a few appearances here and there as well, scored a goal. But again, if Sundowns are going to improve and be the team that we want them to be, I think those young players are going to have to step up. I think they've slightly regressed. I think Pyramids have stayed stable, and Sundowns have slightly regressed just because of the quality they lost in Ribeiro. Again, Pyramids lost quality, but I think Everton is going to be a better player than Nuno Santos. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think so. The next 2 teams that I'm going to be talking about I put it's not the stability or the regressing category. It's up to the board, to the administration, and this is particularly the case with Esperance de Tunis. Esperance de Tunis, the Brazilian striker Rodrigo Rodriguez is gone. Raji Aoulou, the Togolese central midfielder, gone as well. Very good player. Elias Mokwana is gone. They brought in TP Mazembe's incredibly talented right back from the Mauritanian national team, Ibrahim Keita, young, very good right back. And they brought in GS Kabili's winger, Kosela Boualia, and a striker named Florian Daniel. So Daniel replaces Rodrigo Rodriguez. Nobody really replaces Aoulou in midfield, but they have Ogbello in midfield, who they think is a natural replacement for him. And then Mokwana, we can say Mokwana is replaced by Kosela Boualia, who's a good player as well. I think they've done a pretty good job of balancing things out. The things that really bothered me with Esperance last year, they were my pick to win the CAF Champions League. I really think that the board scuppered any chance that they had last season because of their trigger fingers at the coaching level. They started the season with Miguel Cardozo. They were not patient with him. They fired him too early. He ends up in the CAF Champions League final. They fired Laurencio Regekamp, who I thought was doing a pretty decent job, particularly offensively. 2 weeks before they were going to play, I think, Mamelodi Sundowns in the CAF Champions League. 2 weeks, and then Maher Mezahi comes in. He doesn't have the time, and they're eliminated. So the trigger fingers at the board level, and also the failure to replace last season, particularly the center half, Yassine Maria. He was their captain. He was their talisman. They couldn't replace him in defense. They didn't replace him in defense, despite the transfer window in the winter. I put last season's elimination of Esperance de Tunis at the board level. This year, I really like the signings that they made. So if they can stay healthy, but we could say that about any team. If you stay healthy, yes, you have a good chance of going far. And the final decision that they had to make really was about Youssef Belaili. MC Algiers and Roulani Mokwana really wanted him to return to the club because he was at MC Algiers. He went to Esperance. They wanted him to go back to MC Algiers. The player wanted to return to MC Algiers. But Esperance really stood strong. They put their foot down and they said, no, he's staying here. They rejected bids and so on and so forth. But there is a dependence on Youssef Belaili, which is okay because he's an incredible player. But you live with that and you die by that as well. So I think it's going to work out. It worked out, I think, over the course of his career at Esperance de Tunis, the more they relied on him, the better they tended to do. I think this is maybe going to be the last year of ultra reliance on Belaili, but they decided to go that route. So they still have Yann Sass. They still have Diakite was a player they brought in last year from Stade Malien, good striker that just needs a little bit of confidence. They have some. I really think they have a good team this year. I think they could compete again, but again, it's up to the board. Last year, I wasn't convinced that the board were making good decisions at the coaching level and at the transfer level. We'll see how they do this year. MC of Algiers. For me, the biggest rival is the coach Roulani Mokwana. We've spoken about it in other videos on his channel. They lose two very good midfielders, Zakaria Draoui, who's good, but the player that's very good is Akram Bourras, who goes to Hungary for 350,000 euros. Indy Delore was a dead weight that they got rid of at the striker level. He never took to African football. And left back Hamza Mouali moved to another club in Algeria. They bring in Ayman Bouguera. So Ayman Bouguera is a fullback that can play on the right and on the left. He replaces Hamza Mouali, so that's the replacement there. Zakaria Draoui and Akram Bourras are replaced by El Hassan Bengoura, very experienced Guinean international, I think 32 years old, really good anchor in midfield. And then Zinedine Farhat and Ishaq Boussouf are the attacking wingers, really, that are going to be important for MC of Algiers this year. And they're replacing, I guess, Andy Delore, who is more of a striker. To be honest, the transfer window is okay, but it's a little bit underwhelming. I know that Roulani wanted probably at least another winger that they didn't manage to get. Maybe a striker too, but at least another winger. I know there were, talks of Youssef Belaili, who they didn't get. There were talks of Oscar Kabouit from Mozambique, who they didn't manage to get as well. And my thing is, like, you go and you buy a very good player. Sorry, you bring in a very good coach for big money, and then you don't give him the means in the transfer window. That's, especially, as I said, like, this is a very big club, a club that's supposed to have a huge amount of budget, and at the same time, they don't really support him in that way in the transfer window. So, still, he's had a very good start to the year. He just drew the first match. And he's had a very good start to the year in a difficult context. MC of Algiers, they drew their first match, which was a derby against their biggest rivals, USM of Algiers. They didn't get to play that match in Algiers. They had to play it away from home. Um, Also, since the beginning of the year, they haven't had the, I guess, opportunity to play in front of their fans. The government has ensured that they don't get to play in front of their fans. They've suspended their fans because of crowd trouble last year. So, and that's very, very important in Algeria to play in front of your fans. So he's been he has them at the top of the table, despite the fact that they haven't really played at home, really, and they haven't really played in front of their fans. Um, he's also trusted a lot of young players. The striker Muslim Anatouf is, I think, 19 years old. Yassine Hamadouche, who scored a goal in that first match, I think is 20 years old, 21. Osama bin Hawa is like a midfielder who's starting to play on the wing as well. Another very good player in his early 20s. So Mukwena's doing a good job, even though his hands, I think, are a little bit tied behind his back. I think it's up to the board as well, like Esperance Tunis. But in this case, it's you. I think they need some big investment in the winter time. Not necessarily right now. I think they have enough quality to get out of the group stages, but in the winter time, I think they're gonna need more investment. Now the next category is gonna be question marks. This one's gonna be interesting. I have two clubs here that are maybe favorites, so it's weird to put them in the question mark category, but RS Berkane and Al Ahly. RS Berkane, they got rid of their two experienced center halves, Adel Tahif and Yusuf Udayu, and they got rid of a winger, Youssef Sagoudi. They brought in Osama Haddadi, who's a Tunisian international. He plays as a left back or as a center half. So that's one center half there. Ismail Qandous, another center half. So they've replaced the center backs. Got younger, but yeah. Yusuf Udayu, particularly is a very big loss because he's been at the club for 7, 8 years. It was their talismanic captain and so on and so forth. They bring in a winger, Munir Shwiyar, Amin Azari, Zindine Meshash is a midfielder that has played at Napoli, Olympique de Marseille, Tayyip Boukhris from Asfar Rabat as a right back, and Ryan Abid as a midfielder. So basically, they brought in 6 quality players, and they lost 3 players. And this is a team that last year won the league with a record number of points. Um, I think the only reason I have them in the question mark category is because they're making the move up, because they dominated at the CAF Confederation Cup level. And I think the Sevilla comparison is a good one because Sevilla always dominates the Europa League, but when they step up to the CAF Champions League, they fail. I don't think this is going to be. I also think that RS can dominate at the CAF Confederation Cup level, but I don't think this step up is going to be too much for them. Because Sevilla, for example, they don't win the Liga because you have Real Madrid and Barcelona. You can see that they can't compete with those teams, even in their own league. Berkane destroyed the Casablanca clubs last year. They destroyed everybody last year. And so for me, there's nothing to say that they can't take this to the CAF Champions League level. I have no real question marks about their squad. I don't see any weaknesses. Oussama Lemliwi was incredible at the African Nations Championship, maybe the best striker in Africa alongside Fiston Mayele. So I think it's a false equivalence. I think they're going to do very, very good at the CAF Champions League. I just have to include them in this category because we haven't seen it yet. I CAF Champions League is stronger than the CAF Confederation Cup. So when I see these players who have been very, very good at the CAF Confederation Cup level, do it at the CAF Champions League level in the group stages, and I think they will, then I could take them out of this category. Al Ahly is the next club I have in this category, which is crazy to me. And they had a crazy transfer window, but before the Club World Cup. So Wissam Abu Ali is gone for the MLS. Reda Slim has returned back to AS FAR Rabat. He was at AS FAR Rabat, went to Al Ahly, back to AS FAR Rabat now. They got rid of Kahraban Akram Toufiq, very influential players over the last 5 years or so. Rami Rabia was gone before the Club World Cup as well, and Amr Sulaya in midfield. They bring in Trezeguet on the wing. Zizou, who's played as a central midfielder more than anything. Aliou Dieng as a central defensive midfield. Mohamed Ali bin Ramadan as an 8, and Hamdi Fathi as another 8. So it does seem like this is a club kind of in crisis, and that proves how difficult it is to remain at the mountaintop, and why the last 4 or 5 years are so exceptional for Al Ahly. It really is, now that I look back on it now, the second greatest generation in Al Ahly club history. After the 2005 to 2009 run with Abu Turika and Wael Goma and all these, you have this team with under Pizzo and under Marcel Koller, and I don't think the separation is crazy. I think they're right there. When Jose Rivero took the job at Al Ahly, we sort of predicted that this was going to be a tough one, that they're not going to be patient with him. And I thought that Rivero, we made that comparison. He's more of a builder. It took him 2, 3 years to put the project in motion with Orlando Pirates, but he put them on good foundations. And now you can see the success that even Pirates are having under Abdeslam Wadu, off of the base that Jose Rivero was building. I was worried that they're bringing in somebody that, at a club like Al Ahly, you have to get results right away and that they wouldn't be patient with him. And so that's exactly what ended up happening. So the Club World Cup was one thing. He was only there for 2, 3 weeks, but then he didn't get those results in the Egyptian Premier League. Al Ahly are languishing behind several clubs in the Egyptian Premier League. And so he's been fired. And to be completely honest, when I see the way he was coaching, it seems to me like he was making some pretty obvious mistakes, like the midfield balance. Even at the Club World Cup, I was watching them, and I could tell that the midfield wasn't balanced. And he would make that, he would make that admission later, and he would go on to play Aliou Dieng a lot more. But it was quite clear that the midfield was not balanced at all. And it's like, how do you not see that? Do you not know the players that well? Like, how do you sign at a club like Al Ahly and not do your homework and not know the players that well? That's what. So I think he came into this job, to be honest, it seems like he came into this job unprepared. But still, I would have given him 2 years. But at a club like Al Ahly, they're never going to give you 2 years. They want to fight for every title every single year. So that's why I thought it wasn't a good appointment in the first place. And they to this day, they still have an interim manager. So that's why they're in the question mark category. We don't even know who's going to be the coach. Once we know who the coach is going to be, once we start to see them getting into form and start chugging along, then we can take them out of this category. Finally, my dark horses. I have 2 clubs in this category, Orlando Pirates and AS FAR. Orlando Pirates, I thought, had a pretty good transfer window. You lose Mohamed Kota, the mayor of Algiers. Paseka Mako, the left back. Monapule Salang, who didn't really play last year anyways, remember, because of all the club drama. And Tabisa Monyani at right back. They bring in Osman Apolis, South African international, a very, very good player on the wing. So he replaces Nkota, you would assume. Sipo Mbule, I guess, I don't even know who he replaces. He's like playing a similar role to Tito, maybe. Patrick Masongani, who's there anyways. I guess we could say he's kind of like a Salang replacement, even though I wouldn't really go that. Salang, I think, is more on the wing, right? You have Sili Nduli, who's played in almost every match so far in defensive midfield. Lebone Sima has been alongside Mbokazi. Very good, very young defensive partnership at center half. And Kamohelo Sabelebele. So I thought this would be a turbulent few months once you lose Jose Rivero, and it has been on and off the field. Obviously, there's been things like the bus crash as well. It's kind of crazy for them. But when you look back at it now, Orlando Pirates come into the season, MTN 8 final, they win it. 3 games behind in the league. If they win all of their 3 matches, they'll be top. So I didn't know what to make of the Abdeslam Wadu experiment. I didn't think that he was as good of a coach as Jose Rivero coming into the year. But he's slowly but surely proving me wrong. He's does seem to be a coach that knows what he's doing here. So I think they had a great transfer window, to be honest. They managed to keep their best player in Raleigh Bahila Mofakeng. And I thought the way Sipo Mbule, for example, is playing with Bafana, I think they've been able to reinforce and actually improve the team. So if they made it to the semifinals last year with the team, and I think they've improved the team on paper, I just don't know if they've improved with the coach as well. But if they did, then I think this is one of the teams that we can include as a dark horse. And RS FAR Rabat, they lose Amin Zahzoui, who's one of the better attacking midfielders in Africa. He goes to Qatar. They also lose their 2 center halves, like RS Berkane. So Hatem Masaubi and also Hinok Inonga. Larbi Naji is a player that filled in at center half sometimes. He's gone as well. Joel Beya, the Congolese player from Lubumbashi and from TP Mazembe, he's gone as well. And Akram Nakash as a fullback. So they lose 5 pretty good players, but they bring in some very good players as well. So they have the striker Ahmed Tegnati, who for a long period of time was Morocco's 3rd goalkeeper behind the incredible Yassine Bounou and the very, very good Mounir Qazwi. They bring in Younes Abdel Hamid, who is the most experienced, the most reliable Moroccan center half, maybe over the last decade, even though he hasn't been playing with the national team. What he's done at Stade de Reims, incredible. So he was at Saint-Etienne recently. They bring him in. I think all of a sudden you have an experienced center half there who's calm. Because as for Rabat, if you remember last year, they go in the first leg and they lose to Pyramids, I think in the quarterfinals, and it's like 4-1 or something. They get blitzed. And then the second leg, I think it was something like they lose 3-0 and then they won 4-1 or something. It was just one goal at the very end. But they pushed Pyramids, who were the eventual champions, to the very end. And it's just that first leg, they looked so inexperienced, right? And now they have a very experienced center half. They bring in the very experienced winger, led us in from Al Ahly as well. Mohsin Bouriga is another player that's, experienced. Marwan Luadni, who was great at the African Nations Championship as a center half. So all of a sudden, I like their center halves. They bring in strikers, so they don't have to play Youssef Fahli as a striker. He's more of a winger. And they bring in their talismanic winger who was at Al Ahly and who wasn't really getting enough playing time. Like Mohsin Bouriga is a striker that had 14 goals in 33 games 2 years ago in the Botola Pro. He went to Europe, he went to Switzerland, he played at Sion, he didn't really take to it, and now he's back in Morocco. If he can go back to that level, you don't have to play Fahli as a number 9 now as he did at the end of last year. He's more of a winger. Let him play as a winger. And they showed their quality. I mean, the squad showed the quality at the African Nations Championship. I mean, they had Mohamed Rabi Harimat was maybe the best player at the African Nations Championship. He's their captain and their mainstay in midfield. And his passion, his versatility, he's been called up to the Moroccan national team under Walid Regragui. Aitor Khan was really good as well in the African. So I really like as far as a team. I think they and Orlando Pirates are going to be good dark horses. Let's just go really quickly through some teams that I don't really have expectations for. Young Africans. I thought Bala Musa Conte is a good signing, but they have a new look midfield. Like when they played last week, they had Mohamed Doumbouya from Ivory Coast, Abuya and Andabwile from Tanzania in midfield. I thought one of the main strengths of Young Africans over the last few years was the midfield three, the very experienced and very talented midfield three of Khalid Aucho from Uganda, Mudathir Yahya from Tanzania, starter for the national team, Khalid Aucho, starter for the national team, and Stefan Aziski, we know, one of the best players in the Champions League as well. So they had that midfield three, and now you go from that to Doumbouya, Abuya, and Andabwile. It's like, eh. So, and they also had some experienced players like Kennedy Musanda who could play all over the place. He's not with Young Africans anymore. Still, they managed to retain. They picked up Mohamed Husseini, the left back from the Tanzanian national team, and I think the captain at Simba. So they picked up some experience in defense. They lost some experience in midfield. I don't really have any expectations here. Simba, on the other hand, lost a lot of experience. They lost Aishi Manula, the goalkeeper for Simba and for Tanzanian national team. They lost Che Malone as a center half, Fabrice Ngoma, the mainstay in midfield, and the left back that I just mentioned, Mohamed Husseini from Tanzania and Simba. He was the captain at Simba, and he's very experienced left back at Tanzania and at the African Nations Championship as well. So they lost a lot of experience, Simba, and they didn't really replace it with a lot of experience. So I have no expectations for them. Al Hilal, they brought in a striker named Sunday Adetunji, Nigerian. He scored lots of goals in Kosovo. He's playing Kosovo, and he had 4 goals in 4 games this year in the UEFA Conference League qualifiers. They swapped out their goalkeeper. They had, remember, a very talented young goalkeeper named Issa Fofana. They switched him out for Mohamed Mustafa. So Issa Fofana was at Al Hilal. He goes to Azam, and Mohamed Mustafa was at Azam, and he goes to Al Hilal. They also added Ferido Drago, who's another very experienced goalkeeper at Burkina Faso goalkeeper. So they added experience in the goalkeeping room. They bring in Mustafa Karshoum, who adds a lot of height as a center half. They added a central midfielder named Petrus. But for me, for Al Hilal to go as far as I want them to go, their young wingers last year that we loved at the beginning of the CAF Champions League, Adama Koulibaly from Mali and Jean-Claude Giroud Mugisha from Burundi. Those two, they had to take another step up. Because late in the competition, they were good in the group stages, but late in the competition, they kind of disappointed, in my opinion. I'm not the biggest fan of Mohamed Abdurrahman Gharbal, the talismanic striker, the number 10 for them, who plays as a striker. So you bring in Sunday Adetunji. Good. Okay, now you have 2 striking options. These wingers now, if they can step up and play to they just take another step up and play to that level, then Al Hilal can maybe go further and make it to the semifinals. They haven't been there in a while. And GS Kabylie is another team that I'm looking forward to, but they were just too messy in the transfer market. So much turnover. But they have Yusuf Zindauer as a coach, obviously with the PSL experience. It's a big club, the most successful in Algerian history. They have a brand new stadium. They brought in pretty good players. Ayman Mahyous, we remember, was leading goal scorer of the African Nations Championship two editions ago in Algeria. He was at Sierra Belouizdad last year, and at the end of the group stages, he was the leading goal scorer in the CAF Champions League. So Ayman Mahyous is now at GS Kabylie. Zinedine Belhaid is a talismanic center half that USM of Algiers had when they won the CAF Confederation Cup. He was playing in Belgium. Now he's back at GS Kabylie. Bilal Mezhoudi is a good attacking option that was playing in Belgium, and Mehdi Mergham, one of the best players in the Algerian league last year, also sends for GS Kabylie in midfield. So these four clubs are clubs that I'm really looking forward to, but I have no expectations as well. Anyways, leave it there for now. Thanks for tuning in. Let me know who's your dark horses. Who do you think is regressing? Who do you have question marks about? And what are you most looking forward to this year in the CAF Champions League? All right, speak to you all very soon. Peace.